Okay, so without further ado, so my name is Paul Littlewood. I've worked for High Rhythm for quite a long time now in various different roles. I used to run the recording studio at High Rhythm. That's where I met Doya, and Doya is the music artist Skinny Plembe. And I've also done other roles across the music industry. But really I'm here in capacity of compere today. Not a natural setting, but I'll introduce you all if that's okay. Yeah. And then we can get cracking. So this is Harriet. Harriet's festival manager at Deershed Festival, and which is a 3-day music and arts festival based in Yorkshire.
Yeah, about an hour north of here. Yeah.
Brilliant. This is David Cox. David's managing director of Summit PR and has many years in in entertainment publicity across film, music, festivals and events. And again, this is Doya Beardmore. So Doya's a producer and music artist under the name Skinny Plembe, and has released records through Brownswood Recordings and Partisan Records.
Hiya.
Okay, so the theme of this panel is what next? For many of our audience who are further education and higher education students, not everyone obviously, but the majority of our audience, that could literally mean what happens after I finish my course. Okay, so we've got level 3 students and HND students. So kind of A-level students moving on to maybe university or higher education students moving on into the professional industry. So to start us off, maybe if we start with you, Harriet, in your corner of the industry, what opportunities do you see for emerging artists or emerging new professionals currently?
So specifically for emerging artists, so I actually wanted to start with the challenges, because I think a lot of the opportunities are born out of the challenges, but I think a huge opportunity at the moment for emerging musicians is to go back to this grassroots basis and align yourself with grassroots organisations like Deershed. So we really see the power and the value of the local. So for example, this year at Deershed, we partnered with EMI North Records, and we piloted a scheme called Apply to Play, and this was an opportunity specifically for emerging artists in Yorkshire and the North East, and the winners of this scheme got the opportunity to play at Deershed and also got a year's worth of mentoring with EMI North. So it's this idea of the power of collaboration, I think. And I think the scheme we had this year shows the power of a grassroots festival, championing grassroots musicians and aligning yourself with other businesses in the industry like EMI Records.
Brilliant. That really lands with my experience actually at the moment as well. But if we move on to yourself, Doya, obviously there might be a good opportunity to mention your journey through Higher Rhythm, as thinking about grassroots opportunities and so on, and been local to Doncaster.
Yeah, I think that around the time I started coming to Higher Rhythm, I'd put it down to there's probably like 3 people in Doncaster who stayed in Doncaster and carried on doing really cool stuff, even though they probably could have gone anywhere. So there's Steve, who started Higher Rhythm, which I've been coming to since I was about 16. There was the Priory Club in town, which had become like a club enemy. So you get all the bands who were just about to kind of come up playing at the Priory, and that kind of built a scene that meant everybody in Doncaster could open up for those bands and get the opportunity to play for a bigger audience. Sorry, what was the question again?
So really, I mean, that was just a kind of a scene setter really in terms of your own experience with a grassroots organisation, which is quite local. I guess the other side of the question is what opportunities do you see for emerging artists or developing artists at the moment?
Well, in a live sense, I mean, venues are closing every few months. But I don't know, maybe some of you in the room are massive on the internet, and I don't know, but it's not like why we're worrying about why you guys specifically worrying about those venues that are 2,000 cap or whatever. Wouldn't it be really interesting if you could build your own sort of house party network of gigs, a little bit like that Club Enemy thing that was going on? There's you're kind of in the perfect position where like nobody knows you anyway. So start a thing that you've got nothing to lose, and there's no kind of, you know, you've got no skin in the game. You've got all the skin in the world that hasn't been pinched at yet. So you like, there's, to me, I think all of that kind of doom and gloom of that kind of thing doesn't have to really affect you, because you're young and you've got a high rhythm here, and there'll be a high rhythm in like Hull, what's it called, the Warren. There'll be like all of these other places that really all, they're just a phone call away from being like, what if we just set up like a bunch of like 10 house parties around the UK, and then all of a sudden that'll be really cool and everybody wants to get involved with us.
I think that's really interesting. So just go back, that's sort of cyclical. This happened back in the late 80s, people like Soul to Soul, and they're sort of, you know, they'd literally go around like South London and just take their massive speakers with them to somebody else's house, and then to pick up musicians on the way, and then they'd go to North London, they go to East London. It's a massive thing. It's a massive movement, the whole Soul to Soul collective. And it's sort of like, yeah, and that sort of thing happened back in the 60s as well, with bands just going to each other's places. And, you know, you get a load of bands go, right, let's go on tour together. And it's all about collaboration, I think. You're right. It's, you know, it's so expensive to tour, to put music out, to go and perform live. But if you can share a lot of those costs by collaborating with other people, and also different genres of music, why not? You know, people are less music snobs these days than they were when I was your age. When I was your age, you'd have people that were into rock and they'd look down on people that were into folk or whatever. And people say to me, what do you listen to? I'm like a bit of everything. And you can't be a music snob. So if you've got, you know, mates that are in different musical genres, team up with them, you know, take that music out there, get new fans. That's where you're going to meet new fans. I mean, you know, his music is all, you know, so multi-genre defining. I couldn't pigeonhole you at all. And I'm a PR, it's my job to do that. So you're a nightmare for me to be. I've had to write a press release.
I know.
Sound familiar?
I will try.
But I'm losing the point that I was going to make.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Going to different people's houses and putting on, you know, collaborations.
Lost it. I'll come back to you.
Just following from what you were saying, I think it's really important, this idea of being multi-genre, but then within that, I think carving out your own niche and finding your niche is incredibly important. Yeah. What's your identity? You know, I'm saying this from a festival organiser's perspective, so I'm thinking about our festival identity, but this is like equally relatable to you as artists. What is your identity? What are you about? What are you good at? Who's your target audience? Make sure you do what you do really well and you're reaching the right people. I think that's absolutely key, and it's certainly been key to our survival as a festival.
So that's quite an interesting one, maybe to bring you in on that one as well, Dave, from a PR sense as well. So, because that takes some bravery, doesn't it, in some respects from the artist, in terms of, I suppose, outlining their values. But the wealth of that, or the value of that, is then you can align with festival values or organisational values or other artists.
Yeah, and I think don't be frightened of like not being liked by everyone. Yeah. In fact, that's actually a positive and a virtue. You can't, if you're pleasing everyone, there might be something, you know, implicitly a bit placid about what you're doing. You know, at Deershed, you know, we lean in to what we're about, and we know that that's not for everyone, but for the people that are into it, it really works. So, you know, we are known as being like a family-focused and accessible festival. A lot of teenagers aren't going to be like, oh, that's really cool, you know, but you're going to have a lot of dads, parents, who want to bring their children along to a festival environment that's safe and accessible, who are seriously into it. Yeah. And actually, we make the festival experience so easy that we have a lot of people that wouldn't otherwise go to festivals coming to us. That's our niche. And another important part of that niche is actually, again, the power of the local. It's being from Yorkshire. You know, we are proudly from Yorkshire. We're proudly from the north. And as a result of that, we've built up a really loyal fan base in the area. And actually, we do a survey post-festival, which asks various questions so we can gather feedback. And of the survey respondents, 50% of the people that came to the festival were from Yorkshire. So it's really leaning into that idea of like embracing your region as part of your identity as well, and using that to empower you, which is exactly why we aligned ourselves with like EMI North, for example. Yeah. It's why one of our partners this year on site was Taylor's, otherwise known as Yorkshire Tea. I'm sure you've all heard of that. It's the best brew going. You know, it's really embracing this idea of being proud of where you're from.
And I guess that's vice versa. That's where the collaboration can...
I think you've always had like local bands on there as well, as obviously this year with your initiative to get more local bands on, you know, having that local fan base. You know, bands these days, it's so hard to, well, it's two-sided coin, isn't it? It's either quite difficult to get a new fan base because it's harder to go on tour, but then again, you've got the internet. You guys, you tap in something and it'll pop up with suggestions of who to listen to. As a PR, my job over the past 25 years plus, thanks for that, Paul, has been to deal with the media and get stories out through the media about artists I'm working with. Now, for new upcoming artists, it's difficult. There's websites now. Back in the day, it was just newspapers and radio and TV, and the media landscape's changed massively. Where do you all get your information from? You don't pick up a newspaper anymore, do you? Does anybody read newspaper? Yeah. Love to see one of the old people. Yeah, you don't. It's like the local newspapers are actually more important these days than I think they ever have been. Even though they've got no budget, they're all getting rid of all the journalists. It's all homogenised. It's all part of a bigger media group. So it's harder in my job within PR to actually reach that media. But then also, you could arguably say it's easier because then you've got websites dedicated to everything. Very niche websites. Very NME still going inexplicably. But NME is not what it was when it was a magazine. The media's had to change. So therefore, the artists, once you know where your natural media is, as an up and coming artist, you can target them. You can target them personally. You've got social media to do that. You can go straight to that publication.
But you know that just by being into what you're into. Like if you're into, a certain type of techno, you just know that you don't read NME, for example. You might be way more bothered about Resident Advisor, you're just, so you're going to gravitate. You already have that knowledge of what you're in. Just be into what you're into, and all of those outlets are there.
I think it is good for younger artists, and not just musicians, but also producers and anybody within the industry. There's a media there for you. People there will be interested in your stories as much as you're interested in reading about other people's stories. So when you're starting out, find that media, make friends with that media. If it's a journalist at a website, make friends with them, find out who they are, find out, don't stalk them, but, make friends and build that relationship. I think that's what my job is all about, building relationships with journalists. So when I started out years ago, it'd be the junior showbiz desk person at The Sun. It's now the editor. Again, The Sun's a bad example, but, there's still print newspapers out there. From radio people. I've, friends of mine that are presenting shows on Radio X or Six Music or whatever, and I've known them for 20 odd years when they were starting out, and it's just, to find out what they're into, and then you can use that to your advantage. They can always tell you to bugger off and, try somebody else, but at least have that conversation, I think, and, manipulate the media on your way up not manipulate. Yeah, manipulate for a positive, use it as you can. It's there. It's still a tool to be used as well as what's that? Germinate.
Germinate.
Yeah, I think that's...
Try to be a word.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you've picked up on that, because I think we've only got a short amount of time, obviously, for the panel. I think it's always really useful if you can leave a panel with something quite tangible. So when we're kind of framing it with what next, I think the theme we've really dropped upon is audience development in some respects, and all the ways that you could develop an audience. And I think a lot of the time, especially as creative people, we're very, very concentrated on what the thing we're creating, or the identity we have, or that we're marketing, or that we're branding, and so on and so on. And sometimes we negate to think about the audience and how to reach an audience, and what an audience might like, and what an audience might align to. So maybe that's one thing, because I think that's in all his hands, like Doyle says. That's literally in your hands at the moment, and you're already accessing, or you're very likely accessing a lot of the channels and platforms which you should be potentially on and reaching out to. So it might just be an exercise of kind of collating that information. Think about that. So just you mentioned to me when you played Deer Shed, which is just interesting of what Harriet said. It's one of your favourite performances, one of your favourite festivals to play.
Yeah, it is.
But it's just interesting. Often, thinking obviously the locality, and then the values of the festival. It's interesting.
Well, there's it's like a community thing. Pale Blue Eyes played there that time as well, and they were talking about moving up to Sheffield. Off the back of that, just through meeting them a few times there, they've moved up, they've become friends with our mutual friend. They're working on their stuff, and everybody that I know seems to be, we've built this little thing, and there's so much potential out of that, in the same way that in this room there's like at least 10 artists who could start putting on a night and then reach out to another 10 artists who could start putting on a night. And all of a sudden you're a really cool thing that all the really cool people want to get involved with. And those really cool people who are up there are only just people, or those magazines or whatever, are only just people. And like, contrary to what David said, maybe you should stalk them, because that's how I got signed. Like, just go and buy loads of people pints, because magazines aren't like, they're not clouds in the sky. They're like 10 people who go to a certain pub after every day to go and, you know, catch up or whatever. Like, just bump into them or find out who their friend is.
That's true. I think the word I was just trying to not use the word stalking. But yeah, do that. You have to schmooze people, I think, is the way of doing it.
Yeah, or just make friends. That's all it is.
And taking off the technological platform in order to do that. You know, use technology to research to find your people, but then actually don't be frightened to meet up in the flesh. It's really important. That's how you're remembered. And in a similar vein to that, I just wanted to give you a bit of advice as an artist if you're wanting to approach a festival, which is typically done via email. Just make sure that it is tailored to the festival. Don't say, hi bookings team, hey festival, say, hi Deershed. Do your research about the festival you're approaching. What kind of music are they into? Are you a good fit? Maybe mention something personal to the festival within the body of the email that will actually we get hundreds of approaches each month. So we need something to kind of cling on to so we kind of remember it. Make sure all the information is detailed in that email. Do your links work? You know, so many people send us links to their music and the links don't work. Don't make us work for it. We need all the information there. So just be really clear, concise. Really important to say where you've previously played and what gigs you have coming up. I don't book the music at Deershed, but I work really closely with the person that does. And interestingly, I was asking her about this. She will go on your social media to see the way that you're representing yourself, to see how many followers you have. She'll go on streaming platforms, Spotify, to see how many streams you have. But that's not really the core thing that she's interested in. She wants to know where you've played, where you're going to be playing, and most importantly, are you good at performing live? She'll make sure she'll come and see you before she books you.
So that's quite interesting, because that lands. So High Rhythm ran Circuit Records for a long time, and I don't know if this is the same, but when people do that, it's quite unique. You know, when it is a tailored email, when it's not just a shot across, you know, lots of different people. So you really do pay attention to it. It really does. You know, it does work in practicality. You're almost appreciative of the time that somebody's put in.
I received 30 approaches yesterday. Deershed received 30 approaches yesterday. You know, we haven't got the time to really sifting through all of those things really thoroughly. So we need all the information there. We need something that's going to pique our interest. And we do try and reply to everyone, but it's really important not to be disheartened if you don't hear back from us, because it's a sheer volume thing. But you're more likely to get a response if all the information we need is in that approach.
I think that's the same within the media as well. I mean, if I send a blanket email out to every radio station saying, you know, we've got a new album coming out, please cover it, and it's just going, dear presenter, dear listings, dear whatever, the more you can actually find out the name of that person. But once you've built a relationship with them, but before that, even just putting their name into the email, take the extra bit of time to send that email individually. Don't just send a blanket email out to everybody. People won't appreciate that. You know, even if I do that, I don't get responses from people sometimes. But you know, you just have to take that on the chin. But yeah, make sure you've done your research into who you're dealing with within that media. It's the same for booking venues. You know, if you go into a local venue, find out who the booking person is there. Don't just, again, as Harriet says, don't just say, dear bookings person. You know, you've got to find out who that person, the right person. You could be getting the wrong person completely. It could be a dead email address. It could be, you know, all these things that you don't know until or get on the phone. You know, you've all got these things in your pockets that you use for everything but telephone people. Use them, pick it up, ring people.
It's it sounds like the most basic thing ever, but that is like really true. I feel like every other day I get an email from and you can tell it's been written by AI or whatever, and it's from a PR company, like, oh, you know, and I just immediately delete it. Or the same with like radio pluggers as well, where I get some like kind of crappy grime tracks sent to me, but like I just know it's not been sent to me individually. But then our press person Kieran, who emailed me back in like 2017, just sent like a really nice email, and he was just into the same sort of. He was, have you heard this, by the way? Blah 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 blah. And we were like, I think maybe it was his first job in PR, and we were just like, let's see if this guy will do a good job, and he did. Like every tune we put out got onto the A-list at 6 Music, and then
It took me years to get good.
and then and he just became a really good friend as well off the back of that. But then, when it came time to look for a label for our second album, like, he was also the one who put us in touch with Partisan, and I think he's just done exactly what you've done, which is like just be really good at like just trying to make friends. Really,
it's just building relationships. I think the entire industry, as screwed as it is across the board, from record labels are not what they used to be. The media is not what it used to be. I think the one thing that's strong is the festival scene. The actual live music. Take the small venues out of the way, because obviously a lot of them are dying. But there's 450 odd festivals a year in the UK. It's something crazy. From your Glastonbury's, Reading and Leeds, to smaller festivals, to your mid-range ones like Deershed. It's a fantastic festival I go to with my family, and I work at festivals, and I don't know why I go to a festival on my days off, but it's just the best fun. Again, it's not a PR for their festival, but go to it.
No, please continue.
Get your parents to take you. My kids are like 7 and 8, and they've been going to 2 and 3, and it's just, you can let them run off on their own now, and I'm quite happy sitting in the beer tent. But yeah, it's just building those relationships up, I think, and knowing the right people to contact and collaborate with. I think we used the word collaboration earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the 2 takeaways from that is it's a lot of graft. There's no getting around that. There's a lot of graft involved in terms of tailoring emails and working as a professional. And I think that has to be noted at some point, because we have got an industry where we've got a grassroots industry meshed together with the professional industry. And now everybody can contact everyone. And I think, what we're going to go on to as well is how potentially social media has murkied the water a little bit in terms of this idea that you can see everyone, so you can get in touch with everyone. So sometimes that potentially does dilute how much attention you're going to put on, the personal contact. The other thing I was going to say is, if I was sat in your position now, and even at this age, actually, probably, when people are telling me to go and meet people and chat to them, and then I'd think, I'm not going to do that. And quite stubbornly. That's exactly what I would think, to be honest. And I think what we're saying is, it's not going to meet anyone from the industry. It's trying to curate that yourselves. Going back to Doyer's point about you know what you're into, you know what your interests are. It's very, very likely, me and David spoke about this on the phone before the panel, it's very, very likely that the people you're trying to contact share your interests and share your passions. So although it's going to be meeting somebody new for the first time, if you've got a purpose around that meeting, I think that's key. It's not going to the meeting to get something out of it, but you should be meeting people with a purpose. Because I think you will get in front of people, but then sometimes, and I've seen it happen, you are in front of people, but you can't make that purpose clear. That person at that point doesn't know how to help. They don't know what support they can offer. So it kind of slides off a little bit. 9 times out of 10 they'll be really, really lovely, and it'd be a lovely meeting, but you'll leave thinking, I don't know really what I've come away from that with, and that can deter you from doing that in the future. Anecdotally, I saw somebody the other day in front of the guy who runs SJM concerts, who was just done the big Oasis thing, and it was similar panel, and somebody asking, did you put gigs on then? He says, yeah, I put a few gigs on, yeah. So it's things like that, just do a little bit of your homework, have a purpose. Brilliant. Shall we just touch on that point, David, maybe in terms of the social media? Because I think that's really important, what you said as well, Harry, that social media, your numbers are going to be used to a certain degree, but maybe not to the degree, certainly, that the social media platforms would have you believe, maybe, in the industry.
I think it's also, there's so many different social media out there. Social media moves so quickly. There's a new one pops up every now and then, every 6 months or so. You can't just say, just look at Twitter and see the figures on that. Probably none of you lot are in Twitter anymore. So that's probably our age. People used to look at Facebook. It's X now as well, right? Yes, it's changed its name many times, many years ago. Is Instagram the biggest thing to look at? But then I think you have to be across most social media platforms but don't depend on that. It's good to have those channels. And to be honest, that is your channel to your listeners, to your fans. That is your channel, your social media that you can control. You have, full control over that. Whereas if I'm putting a press release out to the media will distort that, change it, put their spin on it, and it goes out a completely different story. So social media is yours to look after and manage yourselves. So remember that when you're putting stuff on there, fact check things, spell check. Nothing annoys me more than an artist putting something out and it's spelt wrong, unless that's your thing and you just do bad spelling as part of your act. But yeah, I think, and things like, newsletters and, keeping people aware of what you're doing at all times. They don't need to see what you've had for breakfast. They don't need to see what, but it's good to get them to know you a little bit more, get to know what you're into music-wise, and outside of music, I think is more important than that.
Yeah, and I guess making an effort to do, you're not going to write any interesting stuff if you're not doing anything interesting in your life. That doesn't mean you've got to be like climbing, Mount Everest or whatever. It could be, for example, me teaching you guys remixing on a Tuesday. That's properly changed my life. You guys are like the best. But it's like, every year for the past 5 years, the amount of people your age has like dipped for like time spent on Instagram. Like, it's fine, it's great. Every morning I wake up and like laugh at something, but I'm not like, the reason why I even got into music is because I've, again, sorry to call you weirdos and freaks, but like when I started coming here, I was like a little Doncaster weirdo and freak. There's nobody else in Donny, only a few little pocket of people who are into this thing that we all love. And that's why I really love coming back here, because you guys are like those people. Like, there aren't that many of you in Doncaster. You're like those people. It's awesome. I love coming in and like seeing, even like on other, like kind of with other students that I've been working with that are like much older on like degree stuff, they're nowhere near as like ambitious or into the things that they are as you guys are. So like when I look at social media, I'm not, there's it's mostly just for videos of people falling down or like how to get like good breakfast tips or whatever. But like you're so into this thing, and like the only reason I got into music is because I wanted to find these little pockets of worlds around the world. So if there's like a little scene in like Milan where they're doing there's 10 people like there are in this room doing a thing that I really just like want to get out, I'll make a pilgrimage to go there and like go to that club night and just be in it, and it's the best thing in the world. And again, I'm struggling to connect the dots of what I'm trying to say, is that if you're doing something interesting, which you should be, because you've all got this space, you've got this room, you've got like the opportunity to make like a radio show together, or you've got like that green screen thing upstairs, you've got a production room, you've got a studio, like you should all be really like working on making this little scene that then you've got loads of interesting stuff to put onto social media. And forget the numbers, because the algorithm's not, it's not showing you who you are actually following anyway. But you've got a scrapbook of this thing that somebody might, somebody in Milan might see. Oh, there's this thing in Doncaster. There's all these like little weirdos. They're amazing. They're doing this thing. It's great. I love it. I want to get, and they'll come, eventually it just build into a thing. It doesn't need to be Harry Styles big. It doesn't need to be Oasis big. It's the whole point of even doing it is because we are just, we're those little Doncaster weirdos, and we've found this little thing, and we're going to find those little pockets around the world. And you don't need that many people to sustain it. Once, a few thousand, and you're doing a radio show, maybe you're selling merch, maybe it doesn't have to be a big mainstream thing, but like that's what that thing is there for. That's what the Instagram, or like, it's a scrapbook for all those, it's just a little magnet. It's a little, signal device. So everybody, all those other little pockets can find you, and we can build this little underground world away from the main, boring, stupid world. Do you know what I mean?
Well, then do use that in real life as well, wherever you can. That's your bat signal to call out.
It's your bat signal. Yeah, exactly. Love that.
That's profound.
I run the socials for Deershed, and I feel really conflicted So like, let's take Instagram, for example. Like, it's such an important tool for a festival as it is for a musician to kind of market yourself and curate an identity and to bring yourself out of the local. Like, I talk about how important that is, but actually reaching like, you know, a national audience or an international audience. I mean, it's invaluable for us as a ticket selling tool. The problem is it's also like this insatiable beast. It's so time consuming to constantly feel like you've got to be putting out that content there to stay relevant, to kind of curate everything all the time. And you've got to think about whether that's worthwhile and what you should really be investing your energy in. Should it be curating your social media, or should it be actually getting out there and creating music? And kind of going back to what I said about the person that books the music at Deershed, you know, she will look at your posts on social media and she will look at your followers, but really what she cares about is the quality of your sound and your ability to play. So therefore, maybe more time needs to be spent in the rehearsal room and actually honing your craft rather than focusing on the way that you're trying to portray that craft on social media, because a lot of it is very curated and therefore distorted. And a lot of people don't live up to the expectation of that.
Can you use it as a motivator to do the thing you should be doing anyway? Again, I'm not the greatest example of this. I'm not very online, but you know, as we start to put out some new stuff, it's a good. The fact that I'm going to have to post is a good kick up the arse to get a radio show done. Do a remix of all the last thing. Do one every month. Do this every month, and then all of a sudden I've got some stuff to post. I don't have to kind of go, oh, what stupid dance am I going to do? What am I going to, you know, like I've got, it's already given me a kick up the arse to make the content that is actually nourishing, so I can just put that online anyway. It doesn't matter. That's not I haven't got to even think about it. I've already done the thing that matters, and this is just a side thought. But if you can do them at the same time, that would be.
So on that one, in terms of tailoring an email and tailoring like your communications, is there any big no-nos on social media? Is there anything that you know, bookers would look at or programmers would look at when they're looking across social media platforms and think, oh, that jars against what I was expecting to see? Is there any kind of practical advice around that? I suppose from a PR sense, in terms of how you are representing yourself online?
I think it depends on the festival or the venue or whoever is booking you. So, for example, for Deershed, because we're really family focused, if you had a band that was like consistently swearing, we would shy away from that. But that's not an issue with the artist. That's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
So I think, again, anything too heavily politicised could potentially be an issue as well, because we try to be apolitical, you know, things like that. But that's kind of on the organisation, that's on the festival, not necessarily on the artist. So you just got to think about the fit. And again, finding your niche, you can't please everyone. Yeah. So if you're a band that wants to swear and you're a band that wants to be really forthright with your views, I'm like so pro that personally. Carry on doing that, and then you'll be picked up by the venues and the festivals where that's a really good fit for you. Yeah. Just back to the approach, like a cardinal sin is don't call us the wrong festival. Like, it is unbelievable. There's another festival out there called Black Deer, and where Deershed, the amount of emails I get saying, hi, Black Deer, or Camp Festival, our arch nemesis, don't do it. delete. Simple as that. It's just basic. It's basically doing your homework. Just, you know, really basic research is important. Yeah.
Brilliant. About yourself, David, in terms of, is there any kind of big no-nos that you sometimes see from?
I think you look at a lot of artists, and you know, I work across a lot of album campaigns, tours, and that sort of thing. I think people can overshare. As I said, I mentioned before, you know, nobody needs to see what John Bon Jovi's had for his breakfast. Using John Bon Jovi as an example, I don't know why I heard him on the radio this morning, but you know, somebody like him who's not been around for a while, you know, ask your dads, granddads maybe. You know, he's been away for a while. He's just come back from vocal surgery. You know, people know this. He doesn't need to go into it in depth. You know, it's just that's done. That story's done. Social media is actually what's happening now. It's news. You know, the word news is new. So I think keep social media to something that is relevant and current. You know, John Bon Jovi's had vocal surgery. That's done. They're going out on tour next year. They just announced it. That's the thing to highlight. Don't talk about what he's done in the past. You know, it stays there anyway, so people can look back and go, oh yeah, he's documenting his vocal surgery. You know, I think you're talking about what you are doing, what you're planning to do. You know, it's a good place to look forward. I think a lot of people look back too much on social media, and they shouldn't.
In terms of when the post of it, yeah, because I don't think users. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a massive social. I'm probably not the best, but I don't think users traditionally look backwards, do they, on social media, or is that? you know, in terms of like
unless you're
past
stalking somebody, you
posts
don't
or yeah, unless you're doing your homework. Last point around that, is there an indicative number that people could work towards in terms of, there might not be, but let's think about streaming numbers. Is it a landscape where actually, if a band's communicated really well, but hasn't got a great online presence, from a festival point of view, would they still potentially get an opportunity where somebody goes out and sees them live, or is there a kind of happy medium? Is there a threshold?
I think it really just depends on the band, the artist. But as I say, we use these metrics, these measures, like your social media followers and your streams as a guide, but it's really not the be all and end all. I don't put the music, as I say, but I know that my colleague that does is just really focused on the quality of your live performance and is particularly interested in knowing where you've previously played and what gigs you've got coming up. That's the critical thing.
Real.
It's not how many followers you have and how much engagement you have on that post that you did about your breakfast. You just don't care. Yeah.
So again, I think that feeds into something that's really usable, because that is in your control, very much like doing the homework in terms of, you know, potentially meeting people and finding out who to meet, thinking about collaboration. If you can take, you know, your best version of yourself into that collaboration in terms of quality, then it's going to enhance that collaboration, and it all starts working as one. It might feel a little bit overwhelming at the moment to hear it all been laid out in front of you, but I think each one connects to the, you know, each point connects to the next.
Yeah, and be persistent as well. Like, you know, you might not hear back from us because we get 100 applications. Try again next year. Try again the year after that. You know, just keep on going and don't be disheartened.
I think it's also just saying that it's the collaboration thing, but also it's not about how many people are following you. It's all about sometimes who you are following. I'm quite interested if I'm looking at an artist or a producer or somebody within the industry. I like to see who they follow, what they're into, what their interests are, because then you can sort of align yourselves. Again, it comes back to actually when you have that conversation with them. But even just, you know, getting to know where their influences are coming from. You know, it's like I look at people who I follow and think, well, they listen to that, I'll give it a go. And that's something you can't pay for that. You can't buy that. It's just that just happens.
Yeah.
If it's them running their socials, obviously the bigger the artist, quite often they have no control over the socials, but you know, you'd hope they've still got as much input as possible. In fact, a lot of them are starting to go back into and getting more involved. You know, the biggest artists in the world now, you know, Mick Jagger and Ronnie Wood, they have massive daily input into their socials, and you wouldn't think they would, because it's you know, it's been taken away. They never did back in the early social media, but nowadays Ronnie, you have to stop him posting because he just talks so much rubbish. A lot of it's great for Ronnie Wood, so it doesn't matter. But you know, it's like he's one of the most famous guitarist men in the world, really. But you know, he will just post constant pictures of his kids, which is lovely. But people just want to see what guitar he's got. You know, people are not following him because of his family, but then he's got a new audience because he's got these young kids, and you know, it's nice to see a bit of that. But he has to be reined in by his social media team, who literally they're the ones that press the button, but he gives them the content. So I think, you know, even once you get to become massive stars yourselves, in producers or whatever you want to be, you know, just think about what you're putting out there. It doesn't have to be everything constant. Just make it interesting. If you saw somebody else posting it, would you be interested in it? I think that's what it is.
And I think make it authentic. I think that's really important as well. Make sure it's a true reflection of what you're about. And if that is rambling about your family and that adds to an overall theme or feel, that's absolutely fine. That's what you should be doing. Don't try and be something that you're not. And sometimes being glossy and veneered isn't necessarily a positive. It can make you quite bland and not stand out from the crowd. And use humour. Don't be frightened of being humorous when it's well placed. Don't be ill-judged about things. But you know, inject your personality into your post, just like you inject your total full personality into your music.
Brilliant. I think that's all been really positive, and hopefully that's kind of, you know, giving some things that you can action, you know, almost immediately. It would be slightly remiss of us to ignore the challenges in the industry. But I think probably most people you know have already told you don't do what you're planning on doing. So we're not going to go down that line. One, you kind of mentioned it, Doya, so which I think it's a good place to pick up on, because it's been my experience. I think it's been the experience of other people as well. So the question was more around, you know, as an artist, how do you balance creative freedom with the realities of making a living? That's one kind of take on it. But maybe another take on it is how do you diversify? How do you kind of use your creativity to generate income, really, away from being a music artist?
I mean, I'm quite lucky anyway. I think I've been quite lucky to be with really like great labels and great people around me. So I kind of, I don't know, maybe take it with a bit of pinch of salt. But then at the same time, I've never really had like a, after the age of like 21. And that's kind of like the idea, that thing of like, you join a band and we're like, we're going to rule the world. We're going to, and it's like, why? For what? Like, who? It's like, you look at any given amount of population, like 80% of them are annoying, right? So why do you want that? So I just want to be able to live in the world in the bubble of cool stuff. Like, mate, we're only here for 100 years if you eat well, right? So just the cool stuff, right? So apart from playing music, there's graphic design, which like for bands or for like that, I kind of had to do that just for all my own stuff anyway. So doing videos or doing graphic design stuff. But then the more that you kind of play and the more gigs you do and the more that you record, like, I didn't realize this at all until I started doing this unit with you guys, that like, oh wait, I've got this something I can teach you guys, which has been a really, like, it didn't really look very cool before to kind of do any teaching if you're going to be a musician until, there were some people like Questlove, like the drummer from The Roots, coolest guy on the planet, mate. He does a course at NYU, and as well as his other like 1,000 jobs doing documentaries and all that stuff. That's well cool. That's properly cool. And people like try to, it's like this. I don't know. This image of like rock and roll is like so naff, or it should be to you guys, because like it's 2025. Like, why are we trying to pretend it's the 70s still or whatever? Like,
Sorry.
It's
My niche.
Sorry, David. But like, I didn't
Coming back.
I didn't realise, but that has been really cool, and it also feeds everything that all of these extra little bits like teaching, graphic design, all that stuff like really feeds back into the main like well for the music, because probably for about a year I've been like banging my head up against the wall with like this specific thing that I've been trying to do, and then working on a remix unit with you guys is like, oh wait, I forgot, yeah, I don't even really like playing guitar live. I don't really like, why am I forcing myself to do it? I don't like recording in this linear way. What I like doing is going into a studio with like people like Paul, record like a band, make a big noise, and then just chop it up and turn it into a remix. That's what I want to do. So all of these little weird like side avenues that you take aren't like, people sometimes like to frame it as like, oh, are you teaching now? And it's like, no, that's like, it's totally, going around the houses so that you can come back and do the thing that you do like as your main thing, like way more interesting, because otherwise you're just going to keep doing the same thing. If you don't like, if you don't feed your head with interesting stuff, you're not going to have anything to say. So all those, every job that you have to do in music, because you're kind of have to do everything yourselves now. You've got to be social media managers, you've got to be everything, you've got to be web designers, or there's no reason why that can't make it can't be cyclical. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
I think, to be honest, to look at the industry and record labels, as I said before, record labels are struggling, or they're making money somehow, but they're just not feeding it down to people. I mean, the music business is one of the lowest paid industries. People go in there and they do work experience, well, internships as it's called now, for free, literally. People get so badly looked after because it's a fun, glamorous, exciting job. It's not. PR is not the best paid in anything, but don't let a lack of talent in the music industry stop you getting in the music industry, because there are different avenues you can go into. You've got incredibly talented musicians, performers, everything. Then you've got people like me who got no musical talent, tried, failed, never could pick up a guitar and strum one chord, and that's about it. But a lot of artists have made careers out of that. But you know, you go into something else that you can do. So I was quite good with words. So I thought, well, I want to do some writing, and tried a bit of journalism and thought, actually, I'm quite interested in getting into the business. So press departments of record labels, they're the ones that send out all the information to the media. I'm quite interested in that. And 30 odd years ago, when I was at university, I sort of got into that a little bit, and then things change, and then you go, actually, I'm now a publicist, and, you know, I can talk about music till the cows come home, but, you know, give me an instrument, I haven't got a clue. But my sort of talent, if you like, it lies in communicating what the musician wants to say to the people via the media, and, you know, and just helping find those stories. And there's, you know, so there is different avenues you can go down within the industry if you don't want to use your musical talent. You know, just think about it's just taking your passion and using it, I think.
Yeah.
There'll also come a time when, like, you know, if you do the same thing forever, it's going to get boring, or you're going to start to, you know, kind of bang your head up against the wall at some point. Just to have an interest in life, it's like cool to do other stuff. Like one of the drummers who I play with live is also at some point just realised that, like, nobody was very good at, like, doing playback for, like, certain types of music, or, like, doing the sort of, like, you know, stem, like, background stuff, and she'd always be doing the same thing at the same time. So she's playing and, like, pressing play and, like, moving, you know, the track back and forth or whatever. And she started doing that, and within, like, 3 years, she's doing it for massive artists, and that seems to be too busy doing that to actually play gigs now, which is a good problem to have, I guess. But it, like, that just makes her cooler. I think everything that she does that's outside of just her drumming is just, like, is cooler.
I mean, there are so many opportunities within the music industry. I mean, take a festival. You're essentially building a mini city for a weekend, and that involves so many different types of people, contractors and roles and skills in order to make that happen. So not only are there lots of options out there, there's also loads of scope for progression. So, you know, we often have people starting as, like, a runner, and then within 2 years they can be a stage manager. In 4 years they might be running their own festival, you know. But within that journey they may have worked in production and then artist liaison, and then also been a performer themselves. So you kind of get to see it from lots of different aspects. And if anyone's interested in getting involved in the festival in a in a non-musical capacity, let me know. We'll see if we've got any opportunities for you.
Amazing.
It's also great sort of networking as well. Like a guy who did a video for me once, I didn't realise he was a DJ, and he's an awesome DJ and he's a great producer, but, like, him doing videos for everybody else is a really great way of kind of just being like, "Hi, remember me? Can you pass me? Can we do a thing together?" And just, "Oh, wow, I didn't know you." "Oh, yeah, definitely. Cool. You're cool. I didn't realise." Rather than the cold opening of, like, "Oh, do you want to collab?" Like, no, I don't. I hate that word. Like, so, you know, there's lots of different ways to kind of meet people and also just live an interesting life.
Brilliant. So no pressure, just go and have an interesting life. Okay.
But you can't write good songs if you haven't lived, right?
No.
Yeah.
You can't make good music if you haven't experienced something. So
Sure.
don't you know, work-life balance. If your work is music and stay in the industry, have a balance. You know, do stuff that you can write about, and is that profound enough?
Yeah, I think so. Brilliant. Have we got any questions? We've probably just got a little bit of time for any questions that might have occurred. Yeah.
So it was mentioned earlier about media manipulation. Could you define what that means, and could you give an example of it?
Great question. Yeah, I'll come to
Is
you.
that me then? Is it? Okay.
Please.
I think maybe the word manipulation, but look, it's just getting to, as we've discussed, it's getting to know the media you want to reach, and getting to be able to, you know, the role of a PR publicist, whatever you want to call my job, is to be able to have a relationship with the media. So if we got a good story or a good artist or something positive to send out, they'll help us put that out there. It's also the flip side of that. It's crisis management. It's, you know, stopping them doing stuff. So if you've got, use something more relevant than the Rolling Stones. So Amy Winehouse, I worked with Amy for a while, bless her, and, you know, she was a genius, lovely girl, but more often than not in the news for the wrong reasons. Every couple of days we get a phone call, Amy's died. Oh God, not again. No, she hasn't. You know, she's just been seen on the floor somewhere. And, you know, it's building those relationships to the media stage. Just stop saying this. But it's almost a bit of sort of dangling a carrot as well. So, you know, please stop putting these negative stories out. If you do, we'll give you a, you know, first listen to the new album or whatever. And it's just, I think manipulation is a good word in a way, but it is down to relationships. It's knowing that you could ring the editor of a newspaper or the editor of a news program on Today on BBC4 or something, but also manipulating the media in that you sort of have a bit of a knowledge of all the media. So if it doesn't work with them, you go somewhere else. And also treating them as if they're not the last port of call. I ring up journalists that I've never spoken to in my life and have to pretend that I've known them for ages, but then again, a lot of that is doing a bit of research into them and finding out, so they don't realise that they don't know me. They might have heard my name, but we've never actually spoken. I haven't done Harriet for about 5 years, never actually met properly face to face. We've spent hours on the phone. But with the media, it's that, it's using, it's give and take. It's PR is give and take. We give them what we want to give them. They won't take it without putting it out and putting their spin on it. You don't want them to. You want to put out your press release that you've written. You want them to put that out verbatim. And quite often they do now, which is nice and makes my life quite happy. When, especially with, I suppose, less journalists around for within music and entertainment, you send out a press release, they cut and paste it straight onto the website.
Yeah.
So make sure anything you send out has not got spelling mistakes in it, because you'll see it again when they just cut and paste it. Does that answer your question about manipulation?
High quality photos.
Yes, yeah.
High resolution photos.
But not too high res, because then the emails get stuck. Yeah.
Can I volunteer one little bit of insight?
Go on.
Just having being a music producer and a DJ myself, and active on LinkedIn, is the propensity for people to be reliant on AI. So when it comes to spelling, there's a lot of power in words. There's reasons to spell words. You cast things in and out of your mind, and construct a sentence inside a sentence. But I digress. The odd little tiny, as long as the sentence construction, etc. is all right. But the odd little, say you misspell and you put an instead. Something little like that can be a nice little clue that somebody's actually written that email personally.
I've never used AI to write a press release or a statement or anything. I've never used it. Maybe that's my age thing, but and also if I write a press release, people can tell if it's journalists I've known for a long time, media that I've known for a long time, they'll know I've written it because I've put something. I've used humour in it. It's a fun industry, for God's sake. The most boring press releases, and you go no. Generally, we get, if I'm working with an artist and it's a big American artist, they send me a press release from America and I look at it and go, I can't send that to the journalists in the UK. They've used the word iconic 5 times. They've used all this, absolute bullshit American words, and you go, no. And also have to spell everything properly because it's not, it's American English. But, I'll change that massively, send it back to them and say, I'm sending this out. It's like, no, we have to send the same press release globally. I went, well, you don't. You send it to Germany and they translate it. And they're going to make it very different. So why can't I translate it into English? And I think it's a big part of it. Again, that's the media knowing that I'd written that. But I've never used AI for a press release or a post.
Certainly I perform warfare in terms of memeology, there's a lot of concepts and human, it's like Taylor and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
so it shows that when the humour's pitched right and it resonates, music's all about resonation, isn't it? But yeah, I think
it's a really good point. I think just to maybe add to that point about, maybe there's a point there, maybe not for right now, but there's a point about access as well. So if people haven't got the language and haven't got the words, then it can be lent on as a tool. Yeah. But I think you're dead right, not to be just totally relied on, because potentially you lose your identity in the things you say. Maybe, sorry.
I was just going to say, AI is a really interesting one. Like you, I typically haven't used it and I do all the content for Deershed. But Oliver, who founded the festival, he went down a massive AI rabbit hole a couple of weeks ago. It was like his new toy. And I'm so unaware of this. I was calling it ChatGPT. It's PT. Is it PC? I've got what is this thing? I downloaded it for the first time 2 weeks ago, and I know it sounds really archaic, but I just hadn't wanted, because I want to use my brain, But Oliver was having a mad time with this. I was like, right, we're going to rebrand the festival. Let's do some rebranding exercise. And he spent a full day churning out all this. Well, AI was churning out all this content, and I read it, and I was like, oh my God, is my job on the line here? There's actually some really great stuff in here. And that's because I do the marketing and the comms. I was like, uh-oh, I'm not going to have a job anymore. But then what I realised is, sifting through it, there were some really great ideas in there, but actually it was the interplay between their ideas and then me formulating that into something that very much had the Deershed tone and resonates with our audience more. And then you had a product that could really work. So I won't use it all the time, but occasionally I think it can come up with some good ideas, but it has to be that interplay with AI and the human, and work working with it rather than against it. So I'm open to using it now. I'm not anti it, but I wouldn't fully rely on it. And I think it's still important to cognitively still be thinking about what you're doing and actually using your brain.
Yeah,
go on, Dan. Yeah.
We learned with Paul just last year about how AI. Paul has mentioned it quite a lot in the tuition. How it's a tool as opposed to a reliant. But it is. It's like I look at it as a maybe a covering of a instrumentalist that's not showed up to the gig, or for part of a track for a DJ track, a dance, and it's like just adding that extra bit in there. Might not have a vocalist or in time, and it's like, well, that'll do because I know I can get a humane vocalist down the line that can have the rhythmic vocal feel from that robot and just replace it in live environment.
Yeah.
So as a tool, I feel like it's an advantage somewhat, but as a reliant, it's really sad.
But critically, it's supporting you. It's not replacing you and your ideas. That's the
intent in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Next.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask, because the question about media manipulation, just because I'm interested from your guys' perspective, like when, how much does a story matter when you get something like thrown your way? Because every time I put something out, I have to go and meet our press company, and we just have a big talk for about 2 hours, and they try and glean some kind of story out of whatever. Do they need to have like a story with like the thing that?
Yeah, I think it is. I think PR is storytelling. We're taking. Well, it's not my story. I'm telling your story, for example. But yeah, it's the media are going to get so many. Like Emily says, you get so many press releases sent to you every day, or people wanting to come to your festivals or whatever. But then you go think about your journalists at the NME. They're getting the press releases from so many different PR. It's probably about 50 PRs a day sending press releases to the NME. A lot of those might be ChatGPT. GPT. What does it stand for, GPT? There's a question for you lot.
I think it stands for being a language model, so it'd probably be like general purpose.
Text.
Trash.
There we go. So they're getting a lot of press releases coming through, and they're going, well, but they've all got a header, they've all got an end bit, and the amount of times the journalists will not read the middle bit. You've got to tell the story in the headline, really.
You need a hook.
And that's the hardest thing about the job, is to go, well, that headline's got to stand out, because journalists are lazy or busy. You've got to go, well, I can't put it in the middle because they're going to skim past that. They want to say, what's the headline? Where can I find out more information? And,
it means generative, pre-trained transformer.
Right. We've all learnt a lot. It's great.
I don't know.
There we go.
That's part of the thing of being like the smartest person in the room. Quiet, and like you learn, don't you? But like you pretend that you do, you never learn.
It's called you Emily, sorry, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not Harriet, sorry.
So, just to wrap things up, in an effort to not wrap things up on an AI note.
Don't use it.
So one takeaway would be, I've been thinking about as we've been kind of chatting through, and all the advice and all the really brilliant advice I think you've heard today. But going back to Harriet's point about starting local, thinking collaboratively, you've got Sign FM. You kind of sat in the room where Sign FM used to broadcast from, but you've got Sign FM as a Doncaster resource. Now that can almost do everything. There's a kind of swift piece of work where you could practice everything that we've been talking about. So Sign FM have got about 75 volunteer presenters. They're all volunteering the time, curating playlists because they're passionate about the music that they're playing. They'll have a theme to the show. It's sometimes genre specific or thematic. You could easily have a look through those presenters. You could have a look through those shows. Think what hits with you, because if it hits with you and you think your music's going to hit with them, then that's going to be your first contact. There'll be, it's very, very likely that you'll be then played on their show, and then you can test that out. If you look for all those shows and there's nothing there that hits you, then you can volunteer to put your own show on and be trained to become a radio presenter. And that's what I'm talking about with graft. all these things are out there, but it might not be instant. Yeah, it might not be the instant. Oh, that makes sense. There's somebody just at the bottom of my road that totally loves what I do. If that's not the case, there's definitely people in Doncaster that love what you do. There's definitely people in the country that do. But that's a piece of work. It's not going to drop out of the sky. Don't wait for it. That'd be my piece of advice. There's things you can do really proactively. Matt's a brilliant example of it. He did exactly that. Matt, who you've met on in the other room, he's a brilliant example of that. The music Matt makes is really niche, but he loves it. He looked at there's nothing around, so he made his own radio show. And then what he could do is contact all the record labels to play all their artists because he loved it. And they all got back and said that'd be amazing. And then when Matt started making more music, he sent all his music to those record labels because he's got the relationships, and they released his music. You asked Matt about it, and I said, Matt, that's like one of the best strategies I've ever heard. I'm like, what are you on about strategy? Just love that music. Yeah. So, when we reverse engineering, it looks like Matt's, a music industry genius, which he is, but it wasn't done from that point of view. It was done because he loved what he does, and he loves what other people do. And I think that's kind of key to it as well. Any last question before we wrap things up? Yeah?
Hi, quick question for Harry. I'm Piper Dawes at Vibration Studios. We run an aftercare service, which means we look after artists after they've made the music as well, try and get them to be able to do something with that music. I'm really interested in the process of what happens when you look at an artist and what happens in your mind to decide, well, not your mind because you don't decide these things, but does it make a difference if they're part of an agency? Because I've heard a lot of festivals tend to favour groups with agencies just because they're going to be less of a headache. Is that true of Deershed?
I think that there could be a bias there because there'll be pre-existing relationships with the agency and you will have worked together for a multitude of years. So it does kind of make the process a lot smoother. But no, I mean, at Deershed, we book in independent artists all the time alongside that. So, but unfortunately, I'm not the booker, so I can't really give you kind of too much insight into that. But I can give you my email address if you want to talk more about your services. Yeah, for sure.
Any more for any more?
Is it Dyer?
Dyer, yeah.
Dyer, for now. Regarding the remixing that you mentioned, is there advice on, brief advice on the side of putting the remix, if it's getting the royalties cleared, but obviously, you're not a big enough fish to do that, would you recommend choosing smaller bands and artists and whoever to remix as opposed to thinking too big too soon? What kind of shit?
Yeah, I've never really approached a bigger artist for that. The only any time I've ever done that for anybody, it's just been people that I kind of like that are on the scene who were maybe sort of at the same sort of level or maybe a bit small, or I just really like this tune. I'm gonna, which sort of led on to. I haven't done that many, but that's sort of what led on to doing one for Maribou State. But I didn't approach them. It was just doing that for other friends, and a lot of the time not even under my own name. Just I'll just do that for you, and you can use it. Not without the kind of intention of being I'm going to get something out of this. Really, so it was always just other people in the scene or just people I've met or gone to a gig and be I really like that tune that you played at the end. Is it recorded? Can I get the stems? Usually, because to be honest, I just want to get their drums on WAV so I can use them later without them knowing.
Do you offer any online advanced remixing tuition, or is it not something you have time for?
What have I ever done that?
Do you offer any teaching of remixing?
Am I now? Yeah, we could too, if you like. Yeah.
Some information on that, maybe.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a wealth of everything on YouTube that
There's already, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm open to that. Cool, that'd be cool.
There's always something more to learn.
Yeah, mega.
Brilliant. That's a good place to end, I think. If we could all thank Doye and everybody else for attending. Big round of applause.